Are you finding it harder than ever right now to keep your students engaged and motivated? The way the world is right now, there are super large amounts of stresses, and I know that we are struggling, and so are our students. The world has shifted and changed, and maybe it's time for us to start considering how we too could shift, change, or just tweak what we're doing just a little bit. Today's episode is all about what I could consider the one thing you could do this year that would really help improve your engagement in your classroom and enable brilliant efficacy for your students, all so that you can increase the impact you are having. Today, we are going to talk about embedding the entrepreneurial mindset across your curriculum. Tune in, this one's a really good one.
Hi, I'm Selena Woodward, and I'm an English and drama teacher, university lecturer, and with edufolios.org, a big-time reflective practitioner. So how can reflective practice help you grow your teaching skills, fall in love with your profession all over again, and help you nail accreditation and teacher registration with less stress and less work? Well, this is the Reflective Teacher Podcast. Welcome to the Reflective Teacher Podcast. I am really excited today because I am joined by two exceptional women who are here to get us excited about thinking a little bit differently about some of the pathways that our students might walk towards as they work with us. We're all about getting the impact right, but as an entrepreneur / teacher / human being who went to school, I have learned that there is a whole heap of mindset shifts that happen when you move from workplace to entrepreneur. And these beautiful women have been working with teachers to explore that in your classroom. So I am very excited and a little bit honored to introduce, now I'm going to do this with a rolled R, okay, you ready for this? No pressure. Paresh Pizarro. There you go. Was that good?
Yeah,
That way? Yeah. And Dee Edwards, who are joining us today from Flinders NVI. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you here because I think what you're doing is really important. I received an email about the project and I just reached out and went, oh my God, we've got to talk about this. So before we go any further, I would love it if you could introduce yourself, tell everyone listening, everyone watching here on YouTube, a little bit about your journey, because we're all about passion here. So passion has led you here. What have you been doing? How have you ended up here? Let's start with Dee and we'll go on to Paresh afterwards.
So hi everyone, my name is Dee Edwards. I'm the entrepreneurship facilitator for the Barossa York and Mid-North, which is run out of Flinders New Venture Institute. This is an initiative from the federal government, the Department of Education, Skills and Employment. So my journey into entrepreneurialism happened when I graduated with my Le Cordon Bleu Master of Gastronomic Tourism in 2019 after completing a Bachelor of Marketing. And I found that my creative hours did not happen between 9 and 5. So the traditional model of come to work 9 to 5, do all these amazing things, work as an asset and we will pay you money didn't really suit me at all. My creative hours happened somewhere between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunate for me, if I'm lucky, it's 10 to 12. But I just found I would go to work from 9 to 5, come home, have my dinner, and then get this creative burst at nighttime.
Wow.
So I'm like, and then I'd be working on work again. So the thought of doing 8.5 hours and then coming home and have my creative burst and an employer getting extra creative energy out of me just didn't sit right with me. So I journeyed into being a consultant rather than an employee, which has led me to this fabulous position of traveling Barossa York and Mid-North and helping other people become entrepreneurs and start business.
Wow.
That's how I ended up where I am today.
That's beautiful. I love that. I can so relate to that, Dee. I remember my school reports, and remember I ended up being a teacher. My school reports would say things like, it's unfortunate that Selena seems to wake up at 3:10. So I can totally relate to that. Thank you for sharing. What about you, Paresh? What's your story?
Well, you'll notice, first of all, my accent. I'm initially from Costa Rica originally, and I came to Australia about 16, 17 years ago almost. And I studied architecture, practiced as an architect for a little while, and decided to career change to education because I was really passionate about seeing the graduates that were coming into a practice and noticing that they really struggled with, I guess, with change, and they also struggle with creativity. And to find out that there was a subject at schools called design and technology, I got too excited and then jumped straight into it. And then I worked at the Australian Science and Math School, which was an amazing, amazing experience. And I have so much to thank that workplace for basically everything I know in terms of education and how passionate I am for a paradigm shift in education. And then I also, when I came to the Limestone Coast, I live here near Robe and worked for Professor Yong Zhao internationally and consulted for him. And it was also something that added so much to my passion about education. And because I know that what I'm trying to do with students is really trying to tap into who they are, what are they interested in, what are the passions, and use that as an engagement tool for the learning. I actually modeled it, and I became really, really passionate about fungi. For some reason, I just completely lost it. And so now I started a business to do with mushrooms and gourmet and medicinal mushrooms, which is super exciting to me. So I'm kind of in both worlds. Still do a little bit of architecture as well. So I'm in 3 worlds actually.
Amazing.
Mom, yeah.
How many more can you add to the list? I love it. You're a woman, so 47 different roles in any given day. Yes. Amazing. Mushrooms, hey, that's new. I hadn't heard that until right now. So now I have many questions, but that's okay. That sounds cool. How did that happen?
Hours about this.
Oh my God, we need a whole podcast on mushrooms. Yeah, already, and she has. She's like, yes, I can see that happening. Beautiful. So you both ended up working on this project, which coming from different kind of places of passions and what's led you here. That's beautiful. So I guess for me, thinking about this from a reflective practice kind of perspective, what I'm hearing here about creativity, about boundaries that we've kind of created in society about when our brain is going to be automatically innovative between the convenient hours of 8:30 and 5:30 or whichever, all of that kind of industrial revolution nonsense that seems to be still here in 2022. Yes, that was an opinion. Has kind of led us here in a bit of rebellion to try and come up with something to assist, to get us to rethink, to consider as educators what we can do in our classrooms to work with that. What is it that we need in the future? Couple that with what's going on at the moment in the world generally, which is pretty biblical with what floods, fires, plagues, name it, we've had it. All right. It is literally biblical. It's quite scary. The world is shifting. I was saying to the ladies, obviously the government just announced that every business that is registered for tax can now pay every $100 they spend on getting their business online. The government's going to give them $120 worth of tax credit. So the government is pushing everybody in business to start thinking a little bit differently too. So even, thank goodness, the government are shifting that way and are getting on board, which is beautiful. And then what you seem to be working with here is this entrepreneurial spirit, which is kind of sometimes counterproductive to school. I know that from my own experience too. So I guess maybe what would be really helpful, so we can all pause and reflect on this, is what is an entrepreneurial mindset to you? What makes someone have, or what would you define as an entrepreneurial mindset? I would really love to hear that. And if you happen to talk about why that might be tricky at schools, then that would be great too. But what is an entrepreneurial mindset? Fresh, we'll go. You can go first this time.
Sure. Well, I think that an entrepreneurial mindset is the ability to feel really excited about challenges. It's seeing failure as an opportunity for learning, is getting excited about solving problems and feeling confident that whatever learning you need to undertake in order to solve problems, you will be able to do it. Yeah. There's so much in that, like getting to know oneself, knowing our own weaknesses to be able to then have our weaknesses and using our assets. that obviously that needs a lot of sort of like looking inwards, right? And allowing in education, that means really allowing kids the space and the opportunities to look inwards and to explore different things that they might find a passion, they might find an interest, and use that to engage them in whatever learning they're doing. I think that the whole thing about the changes that we're experiencing, you mentioned about how schooling doesn't really fit this, and I think that in every world things are changing, right? And there's a lot of uncertainty, but to counteract that uncertainty, I think adaptability is one of the biggest things that we can give the students. Flexibility, creativity, critical thinking, things that are parts of having an entrepreneurial mind. And I know that we kind of, in the education world here, we kind of tend to create critical and creative thinking together. They're two completely different things. And what I'm talking about is like having divergent thinking and having convergent thinking, and giving students the ability to use those whenever needed. And so, I think that it's just so valuable to be able to give students something that they will find of use, of value to themselves and to others. So that's for us in terms of what we've developed with Dee and the programs that we've worked together. Entrepreneurial education is really about teachers being able to use the content and the curriculum to create value for the students, and then allowing the students to create value for themselves and others with that content and with that learning design.
So say that again, because there were ripples there. There was like this idea that went like this, and then it went like this. If you hope you're watching this on YouTube, otherwise you have no idea what I'm doing. I've just realized. I imagine like a little hand and it's expanding. So say that again. We drop the entrepreneurial curriculum in, and what happens?
So basically, we use, as a teacher, for example, I'm a design technology teacher, right?
Yeah.
How do entrepreneurial education for me is how do I use my content, my curriculum, to be able to add value for our students? So that means really, what do the students need and want in their futures? But also considering what does the society, what does the industry need? Because they will need to feel like they are of value. And then also allowing the students to be the ones that add and create value for others and for themselves. So that is such a huge empowering thing to leave the students with.
Absolutely, because you've come in there and you've gone, hey kids, what do you need? And you've taught them first and foremost to stop and think and ask the question of what do I need? Whereas traditionally it would be like the unit this term is this, we're all producing this, and we're all doing it this way, right? No, we're not doing that. We're going to ask you, what value do you need? What do you need? And then you're going to say, well, how does that connect with society need? Let's explore that. Let's see, which is very entrepreneurial, right? I've got this idea for a business, and we have a lot of businesses out there who are an idea looking for a problem, like they've got this great idea, but no one else thinks there's a problem attached to that. So like, I love that bit about like, now we need to check that you're not the only one who might think that's a great idea, because, that's probably a good question to ask. And then get to the point where they have those skills, those introspective skills, then being able to look outside of themselves to check the value. I mean, there's nothing wrong, don't get me wrong, with going, I'm ahead of my time. What do you teachers know? Of course, this is going to be amazing, and going for it anyway. That's exactly the thing you should do when you're a teenager at school, because no one's having to do any grant funding. It's all good. All right. But, absolutely. But then you're learning the skills to say, right, I've now got this. How can I ripple effect that back out to someone else? How can I now make a difference, have some value in society? And there are lots of ways that businesses do that, and with technology, of course. I mean, I lecture at Flinders in technology, and I always remind my uni students that technology, the definition of technology, is a solution to a problem, so like it's no point having a technology if it doesn't have a solution to a problem, so it is all about making an impact, and that's what it's in the curriculum. It's talking about futures and how we're going to solve problems. I love that. It's so aligned with what we do here at Edufolios. Oh, shivers. Oh, Dee, how are you going to follow this? Come on. Topic.
I don't think I can. I agree with what I do on a panel. I agree with everything that Faresha says. I would add just a little bit of context. I'm not an education specialist, but I work with entrepreneurs out in the region, and having been on myself. So my context of entrepreneurial mindset is a way of thinking that keeps people in a resourceful state. So we
Okay.
can overcome barriers, we can make sound decisions, and we take accountability for those decisions. But that
Yeah.
also implies that beautiful paradox of courage, where we can
Wow.
believe wholeheartedly in something, but we also have to have the understanding that we may be wrong, and that's okay.
Yes.
And failure is okay. And this is where education and teaching and entrepreneurial mindsets are quite separate, because if you fail, you fail. You don't get your degree, you don't pass the test. So we've developed this mindset that shuts students down, rather than go, let's learn from that. How can we take that and add context to this problem solving that we're doing over here? So that's where I see the opposition from entrepreneurial mindset and the teaching system. Failure is okay. Failure is actually encouraged, because that's how we solve it. That's how we've solved wicked problems. Yeah.
Wicked problems. Oh, hello. Now you're talking about, oh, yes. Okay, good. Calming my own little brain down of the room. Oh, yes. Now it's just going down this road. Good. So wicked problems. Beautiful. Yeah. Now I love that, because that is a big conversation piece that is really contradictory, and it's making me think of standard 5 for teachers, which is all about assessment. And one of the standards there is about having a range of assessment strategies: formative, summative, formal, informal. I told you, it's all in my head, it just comes out my brain. All right, so and it's really interesting, the number of teachers that I talk to who are trying to move to what they're calling a continuous assessment model, where they're trying to almost do what you're saying, Dee, but they're trying to keep allowing the kids to come back and reiterate. And I've done episodes of this podcast about long-term planning and mapping opportunities for kids to revisit moments where there were key assessment pieces, so that they can come back and see if they've made any progress, because that's our job as teachers too, right? We're trying to make an impact. And if we get one chance to do it, that's not very easy. It's hard for us too. And if we want to share our impact with the kids, we need to teach them to be able to understand their impact. So that's really aligned with that idea of lots and lots of formative assessments repeated over and over and over again. But teachers will often say, but that's so much work, because they're imagining like a 2,000 word essay every 2 weeks or something, which it doesn't have to be. If we can be really, really clear on success criteria and really refine what it is we're looking for, it can be as simple as, in year 7 in my lower ability class, has everyone managed to do 5 sentences in a paragraph with a connective to the next one? Great, tick. We've moved forward. No, you haven't? Cool. Right. What do you need now? What can we do differently to help you create 5 sentences in a paragraph and use a connective? Oh, okay. What do you need? Going back to that, what do I need? Why? Is this not of value to you? Do we need to find some work that shows you why this could be important? So I used to teach in a very low socioeconomic school, and I used to teach Shakespeare to kids who were like, I'm just going to work in the local motorcycle factory, or I'm just going to go and get on the dole or whatever. I don't need this. I don't care about Shakespeare, some old dead guy. Why would I care? So I would pitch it like, well, look, we're basically looking at how we persuade people to do stuff here. So is there something you really want that your mum and dad are saying, heck no? Right. So let's just keep that in the back of our head. Let's look at how this guy from like hundreds of years ago, who's totally dead, can manipulate you. And let's see if we can learn something from that you might be able to use in your future. And they're like, oh, okay. So I Fresh is like, yes, yeah, this is exactly what you're talking about, isn't it? And connecting what Fresh is saying, and Dee, but then it always comes down to this systemized view of, there is a snapshot moment in your life where you will have to prove yourself, and you will have 1.5 hours to do it in an exam hall that's full of chemicals, so you can't breathe and you can't think. That's Stephen Heppel's research in there, just to make it really difficult for you. Go. And so there is this systemized cultural thing of the final point. And the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur, and the freeing thing about being an entrepreneur, is there is never a final point, ever. And sometimes it can be quite intimidating too, because you keep watching your metrics or whatever you're using to measure how well it's going. But there's always a new game, always a new play. It doesn't matter if I fail. For example, I've just launched the evidence engine and the doors closed on Sunday. And I was sitting having a coffee with a girlfriend on Monday morning, helping her plan her launch for her course. And I started showing her my sales page on the mobile. And I realized that no matter what I did to press the button, it wouldn't show me the price plan so I could pay. And I just started laughing. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I think I haven't opened the eye in WordPress. I think on mobile, the whole price plan thing has been off the whole launch. And I'm just laughing. And she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, there's no point now in getting upset about this. That's just going to be in bold, underlined, and highlighted in my notes when I finalize the report on this. And I'm going to make sure I don't do that next launch. Like, and there will be another launch, and there'll be another opportunity. Whereas if I'd have gone into that with the mindset of a kid who's just done their English exam, devastated, oh my God, what does this say about me? I'm a bad person. I'm so stupid. No, I could quite easily. And that goes back to what you were saying, Paresh, around knowing yourself and being able to understand that mistakes are just data. They're just points in time that tell you what you don't want to do next time. And in fact, an emotional reaction is exactly the same thing. And in the past, do not get me wrong, in the past, I would have sobbed and got very angry and panicked, but I'm practiced at this art of making mistakes now. Not that it makes me sound like I do this all the time. But, in my business now, I'm used to this idea that, that didn't work. I don't have the energy to give that, to be really upset and over all the time. Sometimes, sure, I'm not always grounded and in a great place. I'm human, right? But you practice failing and failing forward, which is a little bit of one of those sayings that you practice failing forward, right? And I love that. And that is a skill that I would love. I absolutely love what you've both said. It's beautiful. Thank you.
So Dee, is there anything that you would add to that?
So the skills for nurturing entrepreneurial mindset with our kids, I would really love teachers to adopt the practice of holding the space for curious inquiry. It's a term I learned when I did the Governors Leadership Foundation program with the Leaders Institute of South Australia. So learning to ask better questions, be person-centered, connecting our questions to emotions, which is almost the act of marketing in essence, because we're evoking that appropriate emotional response to initiate a call to action. So that's really a key aspect of entrepreneurship and communicating your value. So, we're putting the emphasis on forming connections and not transactions.
Yes. Oh my God. And I'm so glad you said that, because so many teachers will be listening going, well, I don't want to teach my kids to be used car salesmen. Yeah. And that's not what it is. If you're doing that, you're back in the 1940s and you're doing it very wrong. So yes, I agree. That's a great idea. Yeah. Beautiful, Dee.
So it's just another way of saying persuasive writing or persuasive communication.
It is. Absolutely. Persuasive writing. And also the value proposition, we tend to slip into writing to inform. Here are all the features, and that won't work either. I've learned that when I started my business. It was like, here's all the features. I was very proud of all the features. No one cares about the features. They care about what the features are going to do for them. They don't care. Yeah. Unless they're the Department for Education, then they do care about features like security and digital sovereignty.
Absolutely. Loving the fact that we're coming up with some really great reflection points here about assessment and standard 5. I think we're also really need to acknowledge standard 1 as well, which is know your kids and how they learn. And I know that you ladies work with high school students mostly. Is that accurate? Yeah. So obviously I'm a high school teacher too. And I think what you were saying there, Paresh, about knowing yourself becomes really important during adolescence. Okay. So there's obviously neuro connections snapping and being reconnected, and they turn into like little cavemen, and they're busy, their brain is very, very busy. And then we're like, can you also learn about this novel? And they're like, I don't know who I am. So what you're saying is absolutely spot on in terms of developmental milestones for high school students. Have you seen any sort of transformations in young adolescent students when they're working this way? Have you seen an uplift in their mental health, in their well-being? Is it giving them a freedom that perhaps they haven't experienced before? Is there something magical about making that space and saying, hey, it's okay to fail for an adolescent kid? Would any of you like to talk to that at all?
Yeah, well, I've actually really been surprised by the transformation in engagement. from students that actually undertake projects or assessments that not just for measuring what they know, what they've learned, but actually do something for others or for themselves, like in terms of a project that is for a community, or links to industry, or links to something that is real life. So I think the engagement goes up dramatically. I have loved seeing the students go from one end of I really don't care. What in reality, I agree with them. When I'm teaching woodwork, for example, like how is that going to help them in their lives? Like, how are they going to use a chisel? Like they will probably most likely never use it. So for me, it's like using entrepreneurial education to engage them better. How can they actually feel like that's something useful for them to learn? And linking with industry and linking, at least giving them a glimpse of what their future world of work looks like.
Yes.
It does gather attention and increases their engagement. And therefore, I have better outcomes for my students when they are actually doing something that they consider relevant.
Yes.
And it's not, it doesn't even have to be something that the teachers struggle with time, obviously. So going outside and actually trying to find an industry that links with their learning is not something easy. So we've developed a tool for that, but also we can link it to something that students care about. And obviously that needs to take into consideration your relationship as a teacher with the student and getting to know them better, which is one of the standards. But how can we can make a few assumptions here, and one of them is that these wicked problems that Dee mentioned earlier, big world problems, the students care about that stuff. Everyone does. And actually in a lot of cases they feel overwhelmed about how much horrible stuff is happening in the world. They're not able to do anything about it. So there's another tool that we created that helps teachers link the learning that they've designed to the big world problems, and then not just use the big world problem as an engagement tool, but also break it down into how does that big world problem look like in little bits that actually are reachable for the student. The student can actually access that. How they can make a difference in the smallest, but they can see that domino effect, that butterfly effect of how everything is connected. Because let's say, I don't know, they chew bubblegum or whatever it is, they know that can be connected to the climate crisis. So they can see that link, that it's something that they can have an impact on, they can reach and have effects. So I think that's an engagement tool as well. And that's also part of entrepreneurial education, trying to use the learning that you are delivering find the relevance, find something that the students care about, find how they see it as something valuable. So definitely I have noticed that the engagement is one of the main things that have changed in my classrooms and in the classrooms that have utilized these tools. So we've done iteration cycle with these tools. We've been working a year and a half, I think, on these tools, and we've been able to see how teachers have delivered it, and they've given us feedbacks about how that has had any impact on their classrooms.
Which is amazing. And in doing that, obviously you're practicing entrepreneurial mindset, my ladies. Yes, absolutely. I want to touch on the word engagement with you, if that's okay, Fresh, because it's one of my bugbears, the word engagement. Being someone who works with schools or goes out and works with technology, I will hear often that we need iPads because they engage kids, or we need Spheros because they're really engaging, and that kind of thing makes me want to stand in a room and scream really loudly into the abyss. So I think it's really important to acknowledge what you're saying about engagement, because what you're saying is engagement isn't kids who are busy on task and not bothering me. Engagement is something really meaningful to them. It's actually purposeful for them. It's connected to their values. It's connected to who they are, and it's providing them, and if it's not, it's providing them with an opportunity to discover that it's not connected to who they are and it's not connected to their values, and choose to reject that idea, which is equally really important for an adolescent. I was one of those kids who would stand up. I remember I went to a Catholic school in the UK, and theology lessons were my favorite because I could just argue with the priest every lesson about the doctrine of the Bible and how anti-feminist it was. I was a nightmare gifted kid, right? So, but it was beautiful. I ended up being very religious because it gave me an opportunity to talk about what I was passionate about, work out what parts of that religious doctrine were not aligned to me, what were, and work out who I was in that environment, in that space, which is all about what you need to do as an adolescent. Of course, I would have been a pain in the ass, and I apologize right now to that teacher. But equally, I hope it was a bit of fun. But it was great. And I love what you were saying, like connecting it back to what they're passionate about. It reminds me of the research from the Learning Frontiers program at the beginning of the, you know that work, so the engagement being broken down into the different elements. I'll put that on the show notes, actually. I'll put the first paper, because I know the ASMS were involved in that research. So I wondered whether that might be why. So I'll put that paper up there for a bit more research around what engagement means, because you're really talking to those elements in that research of engagement. I also loved what you said about enabling them to take something that feels really overwhelming, because something that happens during adolescence is we start to feel things very deeply and things become incredibly overwhelming. Like I say, our brain is rewiring. So, we've got very little hope of managing to do anything really. So everything is feeling really overwhelming. And I loved what you said about helping them to break that down. The words executive functioning just popped into my head as you were talking, that's such an important skill as an entrepreneur, because I could have come to Edufolios going, the problem is all teachers hate the ATL standards and they're ticking boxes and it's destroying our profession. I could have got incredibly dramatic. I probably did, let's be honest, got very dramatic about it. But then I have to go, right, okay, that is my reality right now. It's the reality of my colleagues. What can I do to help? And I had to break that problem down. I had to work out what I could do, what one little thing, what step could I take to support educators to just feel that little bit better and that little bit better. And that's how the software iterates. It changes, because every time we get to that level, the teachers go, now I want this. And I'm like, okay. And we work together to solve that problem step by step by step by step. And that's life. That comes up in life, whether you're running a business or not. Like, oh my God, I want to buy this house. I'm in Adelaide and it's 2022, and what was $300,000 is now $1 million. I don't know, that's slightly exaggerative, but not far off. How the heck am I going to save a deposit? No, most people would go, don't know, too hard, and walk away. But someone with an entrepreneurial mindset will get creative. They'll break it down. They're like, right, how much do I need to get every month? And they won't be overwhelmed and they won't walk away. They'll recognize that fear, but it's almost like waving a red flag to a bull. All right, then I'll do this. It gets like that. You get really into this idea of, I can't fail. There's no such thing. Failure is great. So if I fail, cool, I'll just try something else. Imagine the freedom we would all have if we were able to understand how our brain works and just go, great, fear, brilliant. I'm about to do something amazing. Strap myself in. Let's do this, and it would be so good. It would be so good. So yeah, I can hear a lot of standard one there. I can hear a lot of connections to some research I'm aware of, which again I'll pop in the show notes. So it was really good. That's really great. Does that resonate with you, Feroz? Does that connect with what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes, I think that the whole like getting students to understand about failure, I think should really start with understanding. I know this probably teachers get sick of hearing this, but growth mindset, like just like getting students to recognize and acknowledge the difference that it can make into their own lives. Not just the learning, but it's a whole it's a mindset, change.
Yes.
They have growth mindset is just so powerful. So I like to start, even whatever class I'm doing, robotics, electronics, anything, start with getting the students to understand that, first of all, the grades doesn't determine who they are, and that we're just here to learn, and that they can learn, and you need to understand how your brain works. So we start with growth mindsets. And the ASMS do a fantastic job with that, actually. They have a whole subject dedicated to understanding their own learning, how they learn best. So I kept that from them. So I keep it in my practice. Always start with getting the students to understand, because they, unfortunately, they have, by the time they get to me in high school, they've already experienced failure in the primary school or even in the high school. And they already have assumptions about who they are based on those things.
Isn't that awful that they attach that to their identity? And you're like, well, let's smash that immediately. Oh, totally.
Yeah, I'm good at this. I'm bad at, like, I can't do, like, they have this, and it's not their fault. We know, like, you probably hundreds of talks by Sir Ken Robinson, it is really a systematic thing that we
Yeah.
are getting the students to experience.
Yes.
And so we can approach that with some of our tools are actually designed to do that as well, like getting the students to question, why are learning what they're learning, what does the failure mean to them, and for teachers especially to highlight, make those emphasis on failure, I think is really important and powerful and necessary for the students to know that the teachers actually, can think differently about failure.
And teachers need to model it. Yeah, I was going to say modeling it, because I talk about that. I've had dedicated episodes to teachers, and there's a beautiful woman called Jen Rafferty in New York who's doing her PhD at the moment studying brain elasticity in teachers and how we are the opposite of growth mindset and why has that happened. Yeah, exactly. And so she has a business called The Empowered Educator, where she's going around training teachers to understand how their brains work so they can take control, and she's amazing. I'm going to connect you. You'll love her. Yeah, Jen Rafferty. So I totally get that, Fresh, definitely. I mean, Fresh has talked there about a few of the tools. She talked about a tool developed for connecting with industry, a tool that helps you connect what you're doing in your classroom to these big ideas. I mean, do you want to talk a bit about those tools in your program so that we can understand the context of that with what we've been talking about here?
Actually, Faresh is better placed to answer that. But what I did add to that discussion was I'd like to actually do away with the term growth mindset, because that actually implies that you actually have to keep leveling up, and that's not true. You can make progress by going lateral. So I prefer to use the word resourceful. So be resourceful. You can do iterative work and go sideways, but still be progressing. So I loathe the term growth mindset, but we use it because that's the terminology that's applicable to the teaching environment. But I'd like to do away with it. I would really love to do away with it.
Amazing. I guess
that's
it's about what we value, isn't it? What we value in assessment. And that again comes back to the systemized thing that, you need to get the A, you need to get the high A tire, like why, actually, I don't have to be an A in everything. That's actually really unrealistic. I'm not, definitely. But, like when I trained to be a teacher in England, I had to have a C grade in maths, science, English, and I had to do exams in IT. This was like in the late 90s to prove that I knew how to do these things. And it was so hard for me to get a C in maths. Maths was not my thing. But that also taught me resilience, and like having to go through it. And so there's pros and cons of both. But I absolutely agree that, what we value as a society is this up leveling, next level thing. And it's kind of like it feeds into that sense of you're never going to be good enough because there's always a next thing that you need to do. So I love what you just said there about, let's look at the depth and the breadth. And I talk about that a lot with teachers, when they're doing the evidence engine with me, for example, and they want to do highly accomplished or lead, and they've got in their head, they've got to tick these boxes. But what they're actually looking for when they go for that process is challenge. They've kind of been doing this for a while, and they think the way I'm going to get challenge is if I do this really overwhelming process. And I take them back and I'm like, well, let's have a look at what we can learn about your practice. Maybe there are areas here that the standards will show you, which is actually your challenge. Maybe your challenge is the ATSE standards, or maybe your challenge is incorporating numeracy and literacy into what you're teaching. And they're like, oh, yeah. And then they have this renewed sense of vigor because they've got this new direction to go in. And sometimes that's all they want. That's all they need. So I agree with that completely. What skills do we need then, Faresh, if we're going to support schools and kids to come at education with a renewed idea of lifting and elevating creativity, flexibility, failing? Like, could we ever get to a point where we award points for failing? Like, I would love that. Everyone, you did really bad at this. Fantastic. There's 5 points for Gryffindor. You failed. However, really, what do we need to do? What, in your view, could we do? And what tools do you have available to us right now from your project that we could tap into to help us make those steps?
I think the whole thing about having the ability to think inwards and like metacognition and think about how we think, making decisions about your thinking. How do you want to take I don't know, do you want to use divergent thinking or convergent thinking? I think all the time we're switching between those two, and the ability to have control over that is really powerful. But the whole thing about having a creative mindset really starts with understanding the change that we're experiencing and the necessity for us to be creative. It's a real motivator, necessity is a real motivator. And we know that because of so much change, and I mean, full credit to the education system, was designed a long time ago, and it did its thing. We live in a society used to that model, but it doesn't quite work anymore. I think we are making progress. We are making changes. But I love this thing that Professor Zhao said about, everyone agrees that there needs to be a paradigm change, but nobody can agree on one way of doing it. Yeah. How does it look like? So I think that the thing that I would say for teachers is that anything that they can try, where their objective is try to change the practice in order to engage the students, give them more relevance, give them autonomy, give them the I guess self-actualization, giving them the opportunity to know themselves. I mean, that's not wasted energy, no matter how it goes. They might find out that some things don't work, but it's already, a lot of it's not working. So I think that trying things and being having an entrepreneurial mind ourselves is really important.
I was going to say, being okay with the fact that it might not work, and then working with the kids to work out why, especially when they're in high school, because you can have those conversations with them. Yes,
we will be able to put the tools linked in
the show notes.
Beautiful. So that teachers can go through. There's quite a few, and there's some about how the teachers connect with the outside world, with industry and community. How do they make those connections in a reciprocal way? Because I think that I think we need to understand that we all have a mutual dependency in terms of preparing our students. The students' context is more than just the teacher. So the world outside, connecting, in creating learning that is really important for the students. It benefits the teacher, it benefits the industries, because obviously the students are being prepared for those industries that are in the community, but also it's just it just creates value for everyone involved. There's also tools about how to get teachers from different areas to collaborate and integrate learning.
And I think that would be great. The integration, because there's a lot of pressure to get the curriculum covered, and so many of us have missed so much time because we've been in and out, shaking it all about for various situations with COVID and everything that's been going on.
We designed these tools basically because we know teachers have time.
Yes.
And how do we make it easier? Something that is ready to implement. They can just go step by step. Most of the tools have step-by-step instructions on how to do something that they might to have an effect. So so we know that they're time poor, but also I personally like to encourage teachers whenever I deliver any PDs is trying to motivate them to explore their world outside of teaching, because no matter what it is going to benefit the teaching. It will have an effect on their
totally. Oh my God, Paresh, as an English teacher now, I think back to the awful things I used to teach about writing to persuade and marketing, and how I had absolutely no idea how that actually worked. The number of times I've nearly submitted a workshop to Saita about, here's how Facebook works and how these ads work, and this is what you need to teach your kids. Because honestly, like it used to be like, oh, here's a newspaper article, and what are the facial expressions, and why are they using these colors, and now there's so much more to it. It is amazing. It's so much fun as an English teacher to learn marketing. And you're absolutely right. Like if you're an English teacher listening, hit me up. Let's come up with a unit, because seriously, it is so much fun. And your kids would love to know how Facebook can manipulate. Well, they don't care about Facebook because that's for old people now. Sorry, how TikTok is manipulating them, or how people study TikTok, what they learn. Like, how important is it that you get the viral sound in order to get your TikTok seen? Like, and Instagram's the same. Like, all this stuff that as English teachers, unless you're doing it, and there are some teachers that do that, like you wouldn't know. And it's so much fun and it's so relevant. And the kids could probably teach you if you were open to it and they were really into TikTok and they're over the age of 13 legally, you know, you could get them to do a project where they go and do a marketing course and find out about how people use TikTok to sell products, how get them to teach everybody else, you know, like that would be an amazing unit. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's also, you know, like for teachers is quite uncomfortable not knowing, but I think it is really powerful to get the students to be the experts. And I think that I really appreciate when we acknowledge that we don't know as much as they do in some areas. I think that's a little link that we can utilize to like strengthen our relationship. I use that all the time. I actually don't know this. And I acknowledge when a student can actually take a leadership role in something.
Yes.
I think that's really powerful as well. But also going outside, isn't it interesting that we are trying to prepare our students for a world we don't know? Like we are teachers. We don't know about the world that they're going
I went to school, then I went to uni to train to be a teacher, and then I went back to school again as a teacher. I taught my first lesson at the age of 18. You know, like literally, I don't even have another degree or any life experience beyond, you know, I worked as a waitress and in a bakery, you know, like literally to get money while I was at uni. Absolutely. Yeah. And as an English teacher, like, wow. I mean, I love literature, but now, oh my God, come on, let's do it. You know, like this is why I need to talk to Saita again. That's the South Australian English Teachers Association, and actually run these workshops. So many times I've gone, do you think they'd want to? Do you think that? I don't know. Like it would be so much fun. Yeah, I totally get that.
I would like to take the opportunity now because there's an event coming up that we've planned for the 20th of April, and I know it's very soon, but in this event, this is the bridge we are creating, is trying to get teachers, educators, and industries to
beautiful.
Collaborate.
Yes.
So in this workshop, we've done it a few times. We've done it around these regions in the Barossa, York, and Mid-North areas, and it's really quite fascinating to get the teachers' view in industry and the industry's view teaching, and then collaborate. Identify what do the students want. How do the teachers are the experts in terms of what do the students, how would they receive this content, but then collaborating, because it is a mutual dependency we have. We collaborate. We are a community, and we're trying to prepare these students. So it's amazing that the programs that these two industries can develop together.
I can imagine.
There's more relevance to the student, and there is more obviously real world application of the learning in the content that the teacher was trying to implement and teach. The industry were able to, and consistently they're able to give more value to the students, and find those little areas where they can actually we do this here, and this is how it looks like in the real life. And I think that it's better in the students' world. So April the 20th, we have two sessions at the NVI in Tonsley, Flinders University. One is in the morning from 8:30 to 1, and the second one is from 1 to 4:30, with a little in between where people from both sessions can actually have a little bit of a network, and make connections. I think that everyone attending will definitely be really interested in creating and adding value to the learning design of teachers. And we've seen this happen before, where teachers walk out with a program that is really relevant to the students and to their context, to the industries in their own area, and teachers walk out with a whole toolkit of
I love that. You got to be able to walk away with stuff you can implement right now. Oh my God, I'm excited. Can I come? I'm coming. So everyone, we need to go to the show notes. Yeah, Fresh is up. Go to the show notes. I don't know which side I'd be sat on, though. Entrepreneur side, English. It's going to be really weird for me. Like in the middle, firmly in the middle. Yeah. So absolutely, everyone, that's why we're going to get this podcast out quickly, and you guys can make sure that you get yourself booked in at MVI Tonsley, which is not in the Barossa. Sadly, but I'm sure there'll be wine though, right? Just bring your own. And it'll be amazing. It will be really good, because what you're talking about here is so important. And the world has shifted on its axis. We know that. These values, these skills are important. And I know that the listeners out there are really keen to make an impact. That's what we do. So this could be a really interesting thing. You could go to the PD, learn something new, implement it in your classroom, very proficient, then start training other people at your site, very highly accomplished. And before you know it, you've got a lead project on how entrepreneurial skills are running across your site, right? That is what Dee and Faresh would love to hear happening at your site. Am I right, ladies?
Absolutely.
Well, there you go. I want to make sure you go to edufolios.org and find yourself the show notes at edufolios.org/podcast, because that's where the link is going to be. And Dee, is it going to be okay for us to share the links as well to some of the tools that we've been talking about? Can we pop those on the show notes? Yes. So teachers, this is gold, right? Look at these ladies have done so much work for us. So we're going to go to the show notes. We're going to get the links to these amazing tools that are going to help you connect with industry, connect the curriculum with these thinking ideas. It's going to be awesome. And then are you ladies both going to be at the event at Tonsley? Do we get a chance to meet you as well? There you go. So celebrity status here. You get to meet Dee and Faresh as well and ask them any questions you like. So head to edufolios.org/podcast to get that. Thank you so much, ladies. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I can't wait to hear what happens at the PD. I might have to check in with you and see what kind of wondrous things you end up creating. And thank you so much for your work in this space. As an entrepreneur, I can't tell you how important I know this is going to be for the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Selena. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. I had so much fun in that interview, could you tell? Dee and Faresh are such an inspiration, taking experience from industry and working in business with great practice in teaching and learning, and combining the two of them to create something that really is an outstanding step in the right direction for the young people that we are working with. I would absolutely love to know in the comments below what this brought up for you. Please feel free to comment below any questions that you may have, anything that this sort of raised for you in what you're doing already. Are you already instilling some of these skills and these values in your students? Share your stories with us. If it's an Edufolios post, even better. Comment in the comments below this video or hit us up in the DMs on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. I want you to head to edufolios.org/139 to get the show notes and that link for that amazing professional development opportunity here in Adelaide. If you're watching this and you're not in Adelaide, or it's well past the 20th of April 2022, please feel free to reach out and I will connect you with these amazing women, because I know they are passionate and they want to help you achieve the same goal that you want, which is to increase the impact you are having every single day on your students. That's it for this week's episode of the Reflective Teacher Podcast. I will see you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Take care.